This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, what even is the item?
Hello everyone, welcome to Watches of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that refuses to answer uncomfortable questions about the nature of existence. My name is Gepwin, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Izix.
Hi!
And this is the first ever of something, an episode style, let's say, that becomes one of the most well-known things about Star Trek from the 80s and 90s, up to and including it being directly parodied in every other comedy show that came out after this.
And you're not talking about a gangster episode, are you?
No, I am not, though that is also that. This gets to be 2 episodes in one. So yeah, this is the gangster episode. Like, they go to the planet full of gangsters, and Spock does something that I can't remember. There was a car involved, I think.
Yes. And there was the book that they read, and they're like, we're going to emulate this book, and hey, there's some weirdos there, they have some stuff that we want, and it's all like gangster's paradise here. No, that's not this episode.
I'm pretty sure that song was about a different kind of gangster.
Yeah. Yeah, see?
Yes, this is The Big Goodbye, which is not only a gangster episode, which in some ways you could consider this maybe a light remake of the gangster episode. They were very into the light remakes of original series episodes when they were doing the first season. That this is the first ever holodeck episode.
Yeah, that's the central item that's being focused on here. Then it's what's going to be driving the plot.
Yeah, we had it show up as just a random forest in the first episode. Then we saw it as a training simulator in that episode we do not remember. And
even if we wanted to, we do not remember it.
Yes, what episode? Go away.
Yes.
Then this is the first time that it is the proper interacting with characters and it breaks and tries to kill you holodeck episode.
Yes, because, it's good to have a murder machine on your ship.
Yeah. And as such, they don't know what they're doing with the holodeck yet, and they set it up in a way that makes it just existentially terrifying.
Yes. So, are these real people we're making in here? Because that could be some problems here.
This interestingly opens up questions that you won't really get more of until you get to, like, Voyager. I guess they realize how weird it is to have this as part of the plot, and they really walk it back. And then by the time you get to Voyager, they bring some of it back in a weird, unanswered way, which, like, we'll get into it a little bit more too. But I feel like this is like such a unexamined example of how Star Trek is so not a hard sci-fi show.
Yes.
Even though everyone pretends it is. Like the way that holograms even function at all, aside from like the technology of hard light projection, which is something that Marvel made up in the 60s. And everyone's just like, well, that makes sense. That's science fiction, hard light. And it doesn't make any sense. Go away. But like just the way that the programming works, like how you're supposed to think that these artificial people interact with the environment or think or function. This is not hard science fiction. It's using itself to answer some interesting questions and explore some interesting themes, but it is so far and away not hard science fiction.
Yeah, you have a device that can summon up mystical spirits that you can interact with and then can unsummon.
Yeah, you have such a strange... Yeah. Because theoretically, it's a bunch of programs being run in the computer. But the computer often doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the way that they talk about it later on, when you get into Voyager, which I know is way later, but they keep this continuity going in a weird way. Like, each individual programmed entity seems to have its own independent existence that can be fully transferred and damaged and lost with no backup systems available.
Because I guess each file is too big, but you can have so many files.
But the file seems to work the file seems to only exist in and of itself with its own internal system and cannot properly interact with external systems except in specific and limited ways.
Yes. In fact, I believe it was the holodeck is so weirdly isolated as far as technology goes that in early Voyager, at the very least, they mention that the reactors that are built specifically for the holodeck can't interact with the rest of the ship's systems.
Yeah, which is why it makes complete sense that they're using the thing that takes the most power on the entire ship constantly.
Yes. We can't have food, but we can go to the holodeck and eat a pizza.
Which also raises some questions about the food that you eat in the holodeck.
Yes. Is it replicated? Is it all just imaginary? Like it disintegrates once it enters your stomach? Or what? Is it tasteless?
It would have to, disappear as soon as you left.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll get into that. We've way jumped the gun here.
Yes. we just have so many unanswered questions here that...
The holographic gun.
Yeah.
Okay, this episode was written by Tracy Torme, who we just talked about, because the other episode that they wrote was Haven.
Yes.
Hey!
Hey! I guess it's notable that the director was Joseph Scanlan, who started, I guess, the first of I think 4 episodes they directed, and because Tracy was sort of moved around as far as writing, sort of a focus, was sort of brought in at some point and may have helped with the script, but yeah, it's not entirely clear.
So we have quite a few guest stars in this one, in an interesting way, because a lot of them are more comfortable doing other non-sci-fi stuff, which is perfect for what they've been brought in to do here. Yeah. Which is one of the reasons that the acting in this episode is actually really interesting, as far as first season episodes go.
Yeah, it's like a completely different genre is taking place in this episode of science fiction.
So we've got Lawrence Tierney, who plays Cyrus Redblock.
Yes.
He's very well known for playing mobsters in film noir movies from the 40s to 70s, and he had a lot of recurring guest spots on TV shows in the 80s, like this one here. And he plays a gangster in this show. Yeah.
So quite on point there. He will play another character in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, known as only as the Regent, and I think he dies in that episode, but off screen. Also, apparently, he's kind of a dick. Or was, because I think he's dead now.
I believe so, yeah. Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. You learn that about so many actors. So sad. He
had apparently a hostile interaction with Will Wheaton. There was some name calling, and why don't you play football? Like, 'cause I'm kind of a small guy.
What child actor plays football?
The ones that play football characters, I guess. That's it.
That's a good way to get yourself injured and ruin your entire acting career.
Yeah. Well, then you could become a gangster and get typecast.
Yeah, well, there you go. We also have Harvey Jason as Felix Leach. He's an English actor who played a lot of film and TV roles. The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., Rat Patrol, Batman, Cowboy in Africa, Love Boat, Wonder Woman, just anything and everything. One of those dudes.
Yes, he plays a pretty creepy character in this episode, too.
Yeah, he does. He does. I haven't thought about Rat Patrol in so long. Such a strange show. It's the one with the jeeps in Africa, I think. And, the African front of World War II. A lot of their episodes seems to center around needing to find gasoline for their jeeps.
Well, that does kind of make sense, actually. Supply lines, they're important.
Then William Boyer plays Dan Bell. He starred in Forbidden Planet, so old school sci-fi. The old school sci-fi.
Yes, we should do that one at some point.
And he was in a lot of guest spots and other reoccurring TV things from the 50s to the 90s, way too many to name. He's going to show up again as a unnamed police officer in season 6 times Arrow.
It might surprise people. He's played a number of cops throughout his run as an actor. So
He's got a cop face.
yeah, some people just look like cops.
David Selberg plays Walden.
Whalen?
He did
Wilden?
Weldon, I forget. It's honestly been a little while since I watched this thing. I had a COVID experience
Yes,
between watching this and recording this.
So everyone, you got to stop COVID, because when Gepka gets sick, that means it's gone too far, folks. Down with COVID.
I don't even leave my house. So anyway, David Selberg was on a lot of TV guest things. He was on LA Law, Wonder Years, ER, things like that. He has another Next Generation role coming up, and one more in Voyager, and then finally one in Enterprise. Shows up a lot.
He has a Vulcan captain in Enterprise, but I guess the typecasting for him is he plays a lot of doctors.
Yeah. I think he's like the historian dude in this one. So
Yes.
I guess that's kind of a doctor. A history doctor.
Doctor of History.
Then Gary Armagnac.
Armagnac?
My God. Did I spell this wrong? No, I did not.
Armagnac. It's French.
How did you say it?
Armagnac.
Okay.
I'm probably mispronouncing it, but that's the best I can do.
Gary Amargnek, which I apologize, I cannot pronounce French even a little bit, so I probably butchered that. I am sorry. He plays McNary, who's one of the cops. He plays cops and cop-adjacent characters.
I think he's the bad cop in this episode, right?
Yeah, he was the bad cop. He was on a lot of TV guest spots, and he also appeared in my just favorite weird sci-fi show ever, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
Ah, yes. Which is a glorious experience if you've not checked it out yet.
Yeah, it is. I only saw it because I'm one of those weird Bruce Campbell superfans. But like, it drags a little. It's old TV, but my God, it is worth watching just for the absolute craziness of the entire thing. It is a detective adventure sci-fi western starring Bruce Campbell.
Yes. And he runs Briscoe County, the named character there, runs around with his buddy named Lord Bowler, I think it was.
Yep, Lord Bowler.
And there's the lady and the scientist guy as well.
Yeah.
And also they at one point they're like, there's a gang of outlaws and they have motorcycles. This is weird.
Oh, what was the scientist's name? Now I need to look this up. He played Gomez.
Oh yeah, way back in the day.
Yeah, which is one of the other amazing reasons to watch this. John
Aston.
John Aston. There we go.
Professor Albert Wickwire.
Yes. So yes, watch it for John Aston. He's not in a ton of episodes, but he is in the first episode, and he will remind you why you liked the original Addams Family.
Yep. Just a delightful person. Anyway, back to Star Trek.
Yeah, back to Star Trek. That was it. That's all the cast.
Well,
We're done now.
Well, there's the secretary technically, and the lady that has one scene then dies. But
yeah, I mean,
they're not
that's
really
the main.
Yeah.
That's the cast that Wikipedia told me was important. How much research do you all expect me to do for this?
Well, the secretary later, we could talk about her in different episodes. She shows back.
She shows up. One day we're doing a weird special where we get a lot of guest stars to just talk about all the weird sci-fi shows that we mention offhand. Anyway. All right, so Picard is preparing to make contact with the Gerada, who are an insect race who demand very precise greetings in their incredibly difficult for humans language. And the slightest mispronunciation is a grave insult, because that essentially killed a bunch of people on the last ship to run into them.
Yeah, so don't screw that up, otherwise the 1,000-some people on the Enterprise are all doomed, Captain Picard.
Yep, so Picard's been practicing this greeting. Troy points out how much Picard has been working to prepare and suggests that he takes a break because now they have the newly upgraded holodecks to check out, and he might be over-practicing.
I guess could check out one of these new holo novels that are all the rage with the kids these days.
Picard decides to try a detective simulation based on the Dixon Hill series of noir books. Upon entering, his secretary, who just suddenly shows up in this weird, old-time 40s looking office. The secretary makes fun of his outfit because he's still in Federation uniform, and he realizes he should have changed into something appropriate.
Yep. So I guess this is pre-perception filter for the characters in terms of,
Yes.
what you're wearing.
See, that's what's so interesting about this. One, the characters in the holodeck act so much more like people, because later they will write in stuff like, they can't actually go too far outside of their programming. They can't see if something weird is happening. They cannot comprehend if you directly tell them that they are a hologram existing in an artificial world. It doesn't work because they cannot go outside of the very small defined limitations of their particular programming. They act like advanced but still limited computer AIs.
Indeed.
In this, they just act like people.
Real people with real internal worlds and who ponder their own meaning of existence and all that.
The other really interesting thing here, which they start doing with this, he shows up in uniform and goes, well, dang, I should have dressed more appropriately. This is one of the only times in this entire series, and actually a pretty rare occurrence in sci-fi media generally. It's one of the only times that the members of the crew are struggling to figure out how to interact with new technology. Because they don't know how to use the holodeck properly. This is new to them.
Yes.
And they're figuring it out on the fly, which usually when you have any sci-fi media, the people are so familiar with the future technology because it doesn't make sense for them to be confused by it. But as with anything, people would have to figure out how to use something that's new to them. It's just not written in very often.
Yeah, there's the ubiquitous, we're going to fire our phasers, and then there's this. And it's like, okay, so do I define all the parameters for the simulation? Is there a singular file I just activate? How do I talk to the people in there? Do I just talk to them like real people, or is there a special way I have to talk in order for them to know what I'm talking about? And at this point, it's kind of all of the above.
It's also this weird thing where they don't do this again, particularly in later holodeck episodes, because it's not as much fun for the audience. But this is also one of the first times that the characters have to figure out how to act.
Yes.
Because this is essentially an improv game. Like, you go into this simulation and you have to improv that you're this character interacting with these people in this simulation, which is enjoyable. It's like D&D or something, but as anyone who's played D&D knows, sometimes you just don't know what to do. It takes you a little bit to get to that improvisational storytelling flow, and this time they don't. They don't all. They're awkward. They're having difficulty, and that's interesting, but I think the writers did see very quickly that, that's not as interesting as just letting the people who are good actors play different characters in unique, novel situations.
Yeah, it's good for a first time, but to have that be how it runs forever would be, yeah. Though I guess the interesting exception is probably Seven of Nine on Voyager, where she's like, I don't really want to be here playing chaotic as girlfriend or whatever, Captain Proton's girlfriend there. I'm just gonna sort of disable the robot by reaching into it, and are we done? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, and see, by the time you get late enough into the holodeck episodes for Voyager, that can be played off as comedy because you're so used to all of the characters effortlessly slipping into their roles.
Yes. So it's, a break from the norm at that point.
Yeah, so I just thought that was really interesting because it's not something that you see that often later, just mostly because...
make full use of their actors to do acting.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, because it's more fun. It's more fun to just watch the actors get to play around. So Picard walks into Dixon Hill's office where he finds a random woman who's there to enlist the detective's help in finding the person who wants her dead.
Someone's trying to murder me. It could be this list of people or the horrible gangster.
So another person shows up looking for him, but he's had quite enough excitement for one day and leaves to both get changed and bring some friends along. this person just then also walks in because the simulation just keeps running independently of no one being there.
Picard forgot to freeze, program, and save.
And then is very confused that the person he was just talking to in the office with only one door has disappeared.
This makes sense. Maybe he's hiding in this desk. Oh, never mind.
So Picard asks Dr. Crusher, who is very visibly disappointed that this isn't a date.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess maybe Crusher's heard what else the holodeck can be used for, and he's inviting her along. And then it's like, and we should also invite this other guy.
Yeah, Wayland, who's a 20th century cultural historian.
Yes, so he can look at automobiles and stuff. It's gonna be great.
They do talk about the Gerada a little bit, but they still have 12 hours before they get there. It's no big deal. Nothing's gonna take 12 hours in the holodeck thing, right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's gonna be easy.
So they return to Dixon Hill, this time with the historian and Picard both dressed up. Crusher's gonna come later. She's still getting ready. And Data shows up because he just overheard and then read all of the Dixon Hill books ever written and decided that he was that century's equivalent of Sherlock Holmes and got excited.
Yeah, we've already talked about Sherlock Holmes, so let's see how that character trope and archetype evolves through time. And I want to join in, Captain, please.
So they get in there. They have some fun talking about newspapers and how old newspapers used to work. Also, I didn't mention because he's a random side character, but just reminded me that the newspaper salesman is played by Dick Miller, who shows up in so many things.
Yep.
Just randomly. You will recognize him immediately.
Yes,
he's from this. He plays, he's in the Deep Space Nine past tense episode, which is a very, very good episode.
Yep.
And he's also just been in a lot of stuff, just
like
random.
Gremlins.
You have seen him. You will recognize him immediately.
This time he's playing the vendor.
Yes, he sells newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're having a great deal of fun until they spot that one of the articles in the newspaper is about the woman who went to his office earlier has been murdered. And no sooner do they notice this than the police just randomly show up and go like, "Hey, you did that murder."
We just found out about it. Can we at least read the article first, please?
Yeah. These are Detectives Bell and McNary who arrest Dixon Hill on site.
Well, you could take him in for questioning, I guess. I guess this is pre-Miranda.
Yeah. I don't know what the rights were at that time, but yeah, people should know this. Unless a police officer is actually arresting you for something, you can say, "No, thank you. I would not like to go with you."
Mm-hmm. So, don't go with them.
This is something that they don't want people to know.
Yes.
Also, if they have not charged you with anything, you can leave at literally any time.
Say, "Can I go?" And if they say no, ask them, I would like to speak to a lawyer then.
Back on the bridge, the Dorada have unexpectedly showed up and start scanning the ship, which messes up everything, including the holodeck.
Yeah, so this is like a particle beam scanner. It's like, come on, guys. You're basically doing a hostile action under the guise of trying to know what's up with us. But, our own scanners don't do this sort of crap. So what's up?
Because everybody else's stuff is so weak, just because your technology can't handle their cool scanners.
Well, I guess got us there, technically.
But just because they're here early, they still refuse to speak to anyone but the captain, because it's their tradition. So he has to be tracked down to the holodeck.
All right, well, let's go open up the holodeck and say, "Hey, Captain, what's up? We got some bug aliens here that don't show up on screen, but do have a weird voice." But
first, Dr. Crusher, who's now in full fancy dress, enters, even though she has some trouble with the door. It, won't open all the way. It does some weird stuff, indicating that something may be wrong, but no one knows how this stupid thing works. I guess the door just does that.
Yeah, there's a glitch with the door. Maybe it doesn't like interacting with the new upgrades or something like that. This is fine.
So she shows up and is kind of disappointed to find that everyone is just having to be in the police waiting room waiting for Picard to be finished being interrogated.
Well, Picard is Dixon Hill. He is the main character. The rest of you guys get to look at lambs, I guess.
Yeah, they enjoy themselves, checking out stuff. Crusher, like, half accidentally flirts with one of the police officers. Was a whole thing.
Different standards of behavior here. That
Picard's been given the yelled-at traditional film noir cop interrogation. He's just thrilled to bits.
But eventually he's like, okay, I think we've had enough of this. It's kind of going around in circles. Can I just go now?
But meanwhile, outside, Geordi has found the holodeck is locked and not working. Riker and Wesley come down to fix the situation, but they can't really do anything, and the only thing that they can possibly do to try to address the problem is to check each circuit individually 1 millimeter at a time.
This seems like an inconvenient way to sort of sort out a most complex device you've ever devised, you know.
Yeah, I guess this is what happens when you change all of your technology over to some sort of random crystal-based thingy.
Gotta look at the crystals, make sure they're well-formed there.
Inside, though, the crew has no idea that anything's gone wrong. They're just having a grand old time. Picard and the Doctor flirt a lot. This is still before they figure out what they're doing with their characters, so
yes.
It's a lot of flirting. They keep being cock-blocked by Data, as he does.
Because Data does not understand this human interaction thing.
So they head back to Dixon Hill's office, where they find Mr. Felix Leach, who is quite insistent that they talk, even pulling guns on them. They're very pleased with this development. Because, like, oh my god, he's threatening us with a gun. This is amazing.
Yes.
But then Walden is shot.
Oh no! Walden's been hit by a holographic bullet. Whatever shall we do?
Screaming and bleeding and etc. Picard slaps Leach. There's an interesting reaction to someone being shot. Who runs away cowering and yelling about his boss.
Well, I guess we could get this guy to a hospital, even though it's in the holodeck, and hopefully they won't butcher him.
Leach is silly. Leach is a very silly character. He's like, oh my god, you struck me. You laid hands upon me.
I am so offended, and I'm going to run away and get my big brother, I guess.
But yeah, Walden's bleeding out, and the computer won't open the exit. That's a good. They don't even think about trying to get him to in-universe medical care, but I guess that wouldn't necessarily occur to you.
Well, they're also apparently this office is on Union Square. I don't remember if there's any hospitals nearby.
I don't know. Well, Union Square where?
In San Francisco.
Chicago or San Francisco? I have no idea then. Yeah. Union Square in New York, there's a hospital right next to it.
I've actually been to Union Square. There's a Macy's.
So you could go get some Band-Aids.
Yeah. There's a hotel.
So on the rest of the ship, time's running out with the Gerada, but they probably just have to stall long enough to get the captain out. Inside, Crusher does her best to stabilize Walden, but it's not working well because, it's all holographic junk. She doesn't have medical equipment. Leach returns with Red Block and some other random goon. They're looking for something that they believe Dixon has. The item.
The item.
This is a classic MacGuffin plot. An actual classic MacGuffin plot.
We want the thing, but we don't know where it is. We had got that far enough of the plot. Get us the item. You have it, because
they don't have any idea. They don't know what it is, where it is, what it's supposed to be.
Could you describe this item?
Also, to complicate things, McNary shows up. The cop from earlier. He's also captured.
Well, I guess you're not a very good cop here.
Picard decides that the best course of action may be to actually tell the truth, that none of this is real. The crew are from another world. It's actually filled with fabulous wealth.
Oh.
Yeah,
so this seems
where
ridiculous,
the item
is. But,
Of course, no one believes this. Red Block decides to threaten Dr. Crusher in order to get the item. Picard tries to deal with him, but all of this future talk is just confusing everyone.
You sound like a crazy person, Picard. I'm going to try to murder someone now if you don't stop it, I think. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'll consider what you're saying, maybe.
So outside, Wesley's identified the problem, but if he fixes it incorrectly, it could kill everyone inside.
That seems like a design flaw.
Yeah, these things are death traps.
Yeah.
Definitely death traps. Riker orders that they do it anyway because, waiting longer won't fix it.
And if the captain dies, that makes Riker captain, so he can carry out this mission and it'll be fine.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah.
So the office that everyone is in inside briefly turns into a snowstorm. Then the door opens.
Oh. Well, I guess we could go say hello to Riker. Wait, he's not outside there, is he?
Picard tells them that he will leave and bring back the item because it's out there. However, Red Block insists on going himself. Data warns him not to do that because they can't exist outside of the holodeck, but Red Block and Leech leave anyway, and very, very slowly fade into non-existence.
Indeed.
In a weird, weird, scary way.
Yeah, slow motion disintegration. Kind of an uncomfortable way to go.
Yeah, not like that thing they do with newer Star Trek where, like, there's just a hard line barrier that they can't leave.
Yeah, it's like projection just stops here, so, put your
No,
arm
it's
in
very
and see
slow
inside it.
disintegration.
Which
So the crew...
actually has me thinking here. What if that exit that shows up and they go out isn't actually an exit, but actually just another holoprogram being grafted onto here?
Yeah, that's what they always do. This is one of those stupid... Like, the holodeck opens up one of these, like, how do you know you've stopped dreaming plot lines.
Exactly. And it takes a little while for the holodeck to realize, oh, I should, like, not be projecting these characters in this program because they are holographic programs that exist in the holodeck, and this is not the holodeck in this program, so they must go away now.
You're spoiling things from season 2. Stop it.
Oh, I think it's actually a later season. Well, anyway.
No, it's definitely season 2 because I think Pulaski's there. Oh, you're right. That's the second time he shows up.
Yes.
That's season 4 with Barclay, not with Pulaski. Okay, there we go. I got my Moriartys confused.
So back to Dixon Hill.
So the crew rush Walden to sickbay. Picard stays behind to talk things out with McNary, who's having trouble contemplating his own existence as a apparently sentient entity.
Mm-hmm. So, when you leave, do I go home to my family? What gives, guy?
Yeah, like, did my family exist at all? Do I go home? Does this world continue when you're not here? Picard goes, bye.
Bye.
Then the office fades to black with no answers.
Yes. So, Darren, you probably don't exist anymore. Congratulations.
So Picard runs to the bridge to greet the Gerada. They are honored by his greeting. Works out fine. He did it. Data starts in on a film noir story opening before Picard tells him to shut up, and they fire up the engines.
All right, we've said hello to the scary aliens. We can get out of here, I hope, right? Right.
So this is definitely one of the scarier holodeck things because they're not programs. It's like, I am aware of my own existence and possible finite mortality, and this has some questions about my world and how it exists and whether I have actual memories. So I gotta go.
Yeah. I guess a bit later, especially after the second season adventures, they're like, yeah, we should probably not let our hologram characters have this much sort of sentience, I suppose. But at this point, it's like, we're simulating a whole real person, and it's effectively created life for our amusement.
And they do one more thing with it. It's a weird transition. This is, they say they just installed these things. Then later they get an update when they do the next thing, which is in a few episodes in 100000101. I don't know if I even said that right. I'd be impressed if I did, though.
Well, if you did, say it 10 times fast, just to make sure.
They have another holodeck thing, and in that one, spoilers, they are super impressed by how real the person inside seems, which suggests that they're not supposed to, even though, of course, in this one they do a lot.
So, well, maybe in this episode, none of the characters have normal textures to their touch and no smells or something like that, but in the future episode they do.
Yeah, it doesn't actually smell like anything. That would just be fun to have a more modern take on holodecks with intermediate technology. They always have there's no holodeck and then there is a holodeck. They never have the low res holodeck
Yes.
The holodeck with texture pop in.
Yeah, if you go outside the actual bounds of the program, it doesn't auto-generate yet.
No, the holodeck where the grass didn't load properly.
Yeah, if
The weird checkerboard texture on that chair. Yeah.
If you jump over this wall here, you'll actually fall 20 feet, but you'll be safe because it thinks you're falling into a lake, but there's no actual water there. So you can breathe, but you land softly. It's weird.
Yeah, random characters just swim animationing through the sky, you know.
And I'm reminded of that one clip from someone had a glitch like that from Skyrim where the lady swims up and says, "You know what you've done," and then goes swimming off. That's ominous. Yeah, I'd love to experience that sometime in Star Trek. Hey, Strange New Worlds, there's an episode for you.
See, this is... it's difficult to think about now because I think there's just been such a saturation of it. There's 7 seasons of... There's 3 seasons of original series, and 7 seasons of Next Gen, and 7 seasons of Voyager, and 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and then 3 seasons of Enterprise. However many seasons we wind up of Discovery, etc., etc., etc. Both original series and the first couple seasons of Next Generation do this thing that, like, I'm not entirely sure you can actually replicate. They're kind of trying now with Strange New Worlds, but I think it's actually a minor criticism I have of the format of that show. That even with as much as I criticize very vocally original series and some of the stupidness of their plots, you really literally did not have any idea what was going to happen episode to episode.
Indeed.
Like random cowboy planet, random gangster planet, random whatever alien god thing. Like you literally had no clue what could possibly happen on the next episode. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting.
Yeah, it goes completely off the wall at times, and other times it's like, well, that was kind of fun. I guess that was just a planet of the week.
The thing is, that's one of the things that makes it difficult to critique both original series and some of these early episodes, because there's a lot of things in this episode that I really like, but it's also very, very light on ideas and explorations of characters or anything much more substantial beyond, hey, look at this thing.
Yeah. We're doing some sci-fi stuff here. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're trying.
And that's what's kind of interesting. Like, a film noir format's been done before. The gangster thing has been done before. Mashing it together into this weird, like, the crew are interacting with it in an awkward way because it's new technology and none of them are actors.
Yes.
And they don't know what to do. It's really interesting to have the crew in a lost situation like this where they really don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to interact with it. And they're not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But they really don't do a lot of exploring because, like I said, it's a, hey, look at this style thing. Because this is still early enough that you don't have any idea what they're going to do. Like,
Yes.
Next Generation is getting a little more formulaic. You don't have as much of a, like, wild, crazy out there, like, this week we meet a Greek god, next week we go to Cowboy Planet, this week we meet gangsters.
And next week we'll have a giant sphere spaceship that tells us to surrender.
Yeah, but you're still in this. You're still early enough that you're not really sure what is going to happen. So you really can have episodes that are really just, hey, look at this thing.
Which I guess maybe is something that Doctor Who kind of still does to a certain degree. Sometimes this results in horrifically terrible episodes. Other times it's like, that was a lot of fun. And yeah, sure, there's some elements that are, pretty, well trodden, but, we've not had an episode with the Daleks trapped in a time loop with the characters before. That's kind of new.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the newer Doctor Who stuff has gotten a little... They don't know how to pull it off super well. But yeah, they're still trying, like... I don't know, there's an immortal girl and a cat that breathes fire. Why not?
So we're going to go with that. I believe the term is high concept. Well, our people meet this.
And, like, not to get into, like, a Strange New Worlds critique, but like I feel like that's one of the only things that I'm not liking about that from some of the more modern Star Trek, because they're trying to recreate that episodic format, which is something that I enjoy, but there's just been so much Star Trek. The amount of stuff you'd need to actually do, the amount of just weird raw creativity that you would need to put in to legitimately give you that I have no idea what's going to happen this episode feeling would be incredibly difficult to pull off in a good way.
Yes.
It'd be almost impossible. I'm not saying no one could pull it off, but it'd be intensely difficult.
Just FYI, Strange New World folks, I am currently looking for employment, so if you want to hire a writer, I'm right here.
Can you come up with something that's more creative than the plot of Aliens?
Yes. Now, what if aliens, but they're not hunting the crew?
Going back to the actual episode itself, I think it raises a lot of questions it doesn't want to answer, which I think is actually kind of interesting. If they did play it longer, if this had not been something went wrong and everyone's going to die and we have to save them episode, if this had been a bit of a slower build of this is an earlier version of the holodeck, the characters do know what's going on, what are the ethical implications of having basically created near sentient or fully sentient entities that are capable of questioning their own existence and place in the universe, and then using that for your own entertainment in a way that eventually you will have to turn off.
Yes. Have maybe the characters think about that a little bit as they sort of realize, oh, this is a little bit more complicated than I originally thought.
The ending of the holodeck thing is a very powerful scene. It's a really good idea to have one of your central authoritative, always has to know what's going on command characters go like, I do not have the answers to these kinds of questions. Because it's just something no one can or would know. But they didn't actually set it up enough for it to be as impactful as it could be, which is really sad to my mind, because that's a really, really impactful idea. But he doesn't even have much of a relationship with this guy. He showed up in 2 scenes, one of which he's just being yelled at.
I guess this is a guy that's kind of part of the scenery. Do I need to care about him? But apparently, he's a fully fleshed out person deep down inside. And, without things kind of going haywire here, we don't really get a chance to sort of get to know that. But if there was sort of maybe a more organic way to sort of have Picard, as Dixon Hill, realize that there's more to this guy than, quote, what's on the page in terms of, the Dixon Hill novels which he's read, that would be maybe a sort of interesting way to take it instead. Yeah,
and you'd wind up with a slightly more interesting, nuanced take on the whole thing than say you get next season with Moriarty, because Moriarty just becomes a threatening villain. And
like, I'm now all powerful.
Yeah, no matter how interesting he is as a character, coming to terms with his own existence, he's still presented as an antagonist. He's a threat to the crew, and you have to try to deal with that threat rather than any actual moral implications of, we have a sentient being who can only exist in this one room and we cannot just keep it going forever.
Yep.
You could even introduce the idea of like holodeck degradation or something, which I think they do later on at some point. Just like, even if we did keep the thing on forever, running it for that long would eventually just short out the thing.
We have to do maintenance on the system at some point, and we don't want your hollow matrix to degrade and start coming up with weird exceptions and loops that just start eating up all your memory until you're unable to function.
And you could even do that as a first episode here, which would have been kind of a perfect place to put it, because it's new technology. Maybe they did make it too well, and then later they step it back, which is why you wind up with people who act more like programs in later episodes.
Yeah, it would be great to have sort of a problem like they featured with the Doctor's character in one of the earlier seasons of Voyager, where so you've kind of expanded yourself so quickly, and you've got this that you haven't quite been structurally set up to accept all of this. So we kind of need to graft another hologram onto you that has the sort of same core matrix in order to make sure that you don't just sort of fall apart on us.
They sort of do it, they sort of do it later, not super well, but they expand the holograms into basically android analogs by the time you get to Voyager.
Yes,
because the Doctor is their non-human character. They've kind of established that every one of these shows needs their non-human outsider character that can look at humanity with whatever lens they happen to be doing. Data's trying to emulate humanity. Odo can't understand and has to stand apart from humanity, and the Doctor is trying to become his own thing, influenced by but not trying to fully emulate humanity.
Yeah, he's going his own way. And then on Enterprise, you have T'Pol, I guess?
Yeah, that's why it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
She's horny for humanity, I guess.
And then she gets on drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this, I just keep coming back to the last part of this episode, because all of those characters just bring the non-human perspective from something. But the characters in this, as one-off characters and as definitely holographic non-main characters that aren't going on this how do I interact with humanity arc, it brings it the other direction. Like, you, for all intents and purposes, are God. You created all of these people essentially for your own amusement. And now they are questioning their place in the universe. What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, so what are the ethics of being God?
And then, at the end, you find out that God doesn't know any more about the universe than you do.
Well, that's awkward. Can I try to go on a quest to try to figure this things out? No, you're going to turn me off? Oh, well, bye. And nothing was learned.
Yep. So yeah, it could have been an interesting exploration of sentience, what that means. Does being a sentient entity mean that you have what one would think of as a soul in the same way that a, organic sentient entity might, whether or not you believe in that kind of thing? Does that mean that you do continue existing when the program's turned off?
Well, Moriarty says yes.
Is all of the stuff that you've been programmed with keep going? Was any of that there? Does this guy's family actually exist, or do just the memories of his family exist?
Yeah, if someone's not present in a scene, the computer doesn't necessarily have to simulate it. Could generate a, algorithmically, this is what this character does off screen, and then when you encounter them again, they can say, I did this.
It's also kind of an interesting metatextual exploration of, like, the TV show format generally, because, none of these characters exist when we, the audience, are not looking at them.
Yeah.
So what do? We know that they do stuff in between because they reference it, but we also know that they didn't actually do any of those things.
Yes.
Does that make them... That makes them less real people in a certain sense, but you still interact with it like they are.
You believe in the fiction sufficiently in order to pretend that these events happened. We didn't see them. We were not demonstrated them. We were simply told about them, and that's good enough for us as viewers here. Was that good enough for the characters on the holodeck, though?
Yeah, you wind up with an interesting, weird question, especially from the perspective of a TV writer. I feel like you could get some very interesting perspectives on this question. It's basically asking, what if the characters on the TV show questioned whether they existed when you turned it off?
Yes. Start looking at the camera and don't leave us, we need you.
Which in some ways is like a really good premise for a Twilight Zone episode.
Yes. I don't know if they've done one like that before. They should.
Maybe Outer Limits could do it too, any of those.
Yeah, they sometimes have some crossover as well. So,
but I just feel like I love this episode way more than I remembered, because it's just fun to watch the crew get to be awkward. Yes. And this was fun for them because must be so challenging for an actor to be playing a character who has to act like that character is bad at acting in a novel situation.
So some of the stuff I was reading about this was very much, people actually were enjoying themselves a great deal on set because this was sort of a break from everything else, and allowing the character, the actors to sort of do a period piece. It's like, I can sort of stretch my acting chops a little bit. I don't have to necessarily be in the same character constantly.
And actors will tell you all the time that the hardest thing to play is a realistically bad actor.
One could try to emulate examples of bad actors in real life, but even still, it'll just come off as fake of being fake.
So it's a great time to watch the actors get to have fun, get to watch them struggle with new technology, which I do kind of wish they did some more with, because even in the show, they're interacting with new technology all the time.
Yep.
But they're so seldom confused by it.
It's like, oh yeah, this has an interface that I fully understand right away, so I'll push some buttons and suddenly we have a new cloaking device that shoots disco rays at people.
If they'd just done that, we're interacting with a new thing, and it went haywire, and I had to figure a way out of this situation, it would have been a perfectly serviceable, fun episode. The fact that they throw in existential horror right at the end, for no particular reason, they don't want to examine it, they don't spend any time talking about it, just like, hey, what happens to people when they die? I don't know. Hope you don't. Bye.
Yeah. Well, sometimes Star Trek does stuff like this, I'm actually reminded of something where they do something similar, but it's at the Starvin episode, where it's a Voyager episode, Dragon's Teeth, where the two people are about to get into cryopods in order to sleep through the bombing of their homeworld, etc., etc. And the lady's like, "Will we dream?" And the guy's like, "I don't know, get in." It's like, this might be an important thing, because if they get trapped in for centuries down there, well, if they're dreaming, that could be an interesting experience. It could leave them heavily mentally damaged, and if not, then they'll just sort of wake up and be like, oh, it's now the future.
Or not, as the case may be with that episode.
Yes. Yeah. No, our planet's still crap. Dang. I don't have much more to sort of pull out here as far as interesting things to talk about, other than a little bit of geography about Picard's or Dixon Hill's office there, because I believe
it's in San Francisco, which I visited twice as a child and don't remember much.
Well, I believe they see briefly on the business card or something like that. Apparently, his office is 350 Powell Street, which presently is part of Union Square, as in the actual square, not the buildings around it. And the address presently belongs to a coffee shop that's closed. So
they should definitely put a Dixon Hill sign up.
I've as I mentioned earlier, I've actually been to the square there. I've gone to the American Geophysical Union a fall meeting times and ages past. I don't remember if it's still held in San Francisco, but it was at the time at the very least. And Union Square is kind of pretty close to where all the convention center stuff is. And as I mentioned, there's a Macy's there, and on the roof of it is a cheesecake factory. And going up there and eating on the balcony in the middle of winter is a little weird, but they have these nice heated lamps, so it's actually quite nice.
Could be interesting. Does it get cold in San Francisco?
It gets California. Cool. It's that side of the city is away from the ocean, so there's some different sort of effects going on versus the seaward side. And so I guess the coldest it got there when I was there was the 50s maybe. And this was in the middle of December, so.
Okay, yeah. The only thing that I particularly know about California is that they don't have seasons like I do.
Yeah. It's a different sort of experience.
I guess San Francisco is a lot more north than LA or those places that are just warm all year. So I suppose California is very big.
Yes. Though I guess there's also, similar effects kind of going all the way up the coast there. It's yes, it's Anchorage, it's winter, and we're still getting the first snow storms and some years. And, meanwhile, when I was in New Hampshire, it's we're already kind of buried here. So it's a little bit of interesting geography stuff, I suppose. But if you do find yourself at Union Square, I would recommend checking out the restaurant there, and also there's like a sort of a mall area nearby that's pretty neat, and the Metreon sort of place with businesses and stuff there.
That just sounds like a supervillain.
Yes. But it's the Metreon. It's there's a Chipotle in there, there's burgers, there's a massage place, a drugstore, I suppose. There's National University San Francisco's attached to it, apparently.
I am Metreon. You will have a burrito.
And it's also right next to the Moscone Center, Moscone. And there's a bunch of museums and such like there. Unfortunately, the cartoon museum I think is closed down. That was kind of in the area as well. But there's art museums and things like that, various sorts are nearby. So it's sort of an interesting place, tourist wise, to sort of check out. And it's also right next to the financial district. So if you want to look at skyscrapers, that's just like a few blocks over.
I know so little about San Francisco. I apologize. So much of this is going over my head. I'm looking at it on Google Streets. It's like, okay, yep. Looks San Francisco-y. All those buildings are white with the weird little square windows. Some vaguely Art Deco looking shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Also nearby is some of the trolley lines. It's very touristy, but it is a great way to get down to the pier area. And there's more stuff to look at over there.
Well, I'm very glad that the trolleys are still going. So many places are dismantling all of their public infrastructure.
Yeah, well, the trolleys are very much a San Francisco thing, so that's like city heritage sort of keeps them around. There is also bus lines that use the overhead cables to get around, and those are still running. Last I checked. There's some good stuff going on. So San Francisco, it's cool.
Looks it. I feel like I have an unofficial rivalry with being on the East Coast, but I don't know if that's true.
It's very much like apples and electron microscope sort of comparisons here. These are very different things, but I guess the geography sort of demands it. So so should we move on?
Yeah. Well, if that was most of what we had to talk about, I feel, then probably time to get over to the Galaxy's favorite game show! Woo!
We got our contestants racking up various points today, and we got some prizes to hand out. So I hope you're ready for it. Anyway, the first prize to hand out is the holodeck malfunction prize, which goes to Picard and Company for falling victim to the first proper holodeck malfunction in the series. The start of a rather kind of annoying trend, honestly, but they'll make some interesting uses of it overall. What do they win, Gepwin?
Picard wins books, because I feel like the books very seldom come alive and try to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably like the holodeck version of the book was better than the movie. The book tried to shoot me 100% fewer times.
Yes, when your entertainment starts having a body count, that might mean it's time to change what sort of things you're taking in here. Ooh. Our second prize is the Ridiculously Hostile Locals prize, which goes to the Gerada for being prone to murder if you don't speak their language perfectly, and having scans that seriously mess up your ship for no real reason. What do they get, Gepwin?
Gerada win a border wall. Seems like the only logical conclusion when you're that racist about people speaking your language. They just put up a fence and be done with it. Space fence. We've seen these.
Heck, it's like make a deal with Q. Just put that weird force field thing around our area of space so we can just ignore everyone. Cool.
They go like, you don't speak our language, therefore we get to kill you. It's not a good look, dudes.
Nope.
Stop it.
Yes, it's one of those things that maybe the Federation should be avoiding these people. Anyway, the final prize today is the Caring Antagonist, which goes to Cyrus Redblock, who really does care about the murder urges of his henchmen. What does Cyrus Redblock win, Gepwin?
Cyrus Redblock wins the item. I don't know, maybe it's Prozac or something. You can calm down, so we have no idea. We talked about this in the Mobster episode way back. Like, while they were all seriously dangerous, horrible people, a lot of them did really legitimately care about their local neighborhood and politics, which is one of the reasons that they stayed in consistent amounts of power for so long, because they took over the low-level corruption stuff that most local governments of the time period weren't dealing with.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to have this, we might as well make it nice and organized, and, that way it's not going to be screwing up our neighborhoods.
So it makes sense that he's both a murderous psychopath, but also seems to deeply care about the people around him.
Yeah, you gotta keep an eye out for your dudes here, and they'll help you with your plans to take over the city or something. That's all I got, Gepwin. Feel free to take us away, but don't take away that item and hide it somewhere, because we'll never be able to find it again.
Yeah, because we completely forget what it is.
Yes.
It's not important. Alright, thank you for putting up with this weird thing we do called the Galaxy's Favorite Game Show! Oh, we're there. Next time.
Yep.
Next time we have the one episode that spawned so much stupid shit. Like, just so much. Like, it was good in Next Gen. I enjoy both this episode and all the things that it spawns in Next Generation as a contained series.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to the movies and Star Trek Picard and all this just stupid, just stop it. Just, my God, just be done.
A little complicated in an unnecessary fashion, but here it's well contained, and and we're not talking about any crystalline entities here, are we?
Only vaguely. Yeah. Because that's just a random plot device that I can't believe they made show up in 3 episodes. It's not that interesting. And maybe because you paid for the model, or you made the computer doodah, or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was expensive at the time.
I think it was a computer doodah. I have to look that up again. Anyway, we are moving on to Data Lore.
Data Lore. Wait, Data's going to be playing 2 characters in the same episode?
Yes. Brent Spiner gets to play 2 characters in 1 episode. Later, he plays 3 characters in 1 episode. Now, he is quickly moving towards being the only person they need to hire for any Star Trek series ever, because eventually he will just play every character.
He'll even play Jonathan Frakes, who's directing future episodes as well. And Jonathan Frakes will be like, "I'm confused. I thought I was the director." And like, no, we got Brent Spiner to play you at being the director.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love Brent Spiner. He was one of my favorite actors from Star Trek. I love everything he's doing. I love that he keeps getting to play stupid characters. But at this point, the Sungs have some sort of weird genetic abnormality. They've looked exactly the same for like 7 generations.
Yes.
Doesn't even make any sense. And given the way that Picard has to keep explaining stuff, like Star Trek Picard has to keep going back and explaining why stuff that doesn't make any sense in the series actually makes sense, eventually they're just going to tell us they were all clones.
Which would actually kind of make sense to a degree. It's like, just whenever one of us, hits 40, we pop out a new clone, and there we go.
So, like, this started as a really good idea. And this was even, this era, 80s, this, like, came out originally in, like, 88. Having two characters played by the same actor, both on screen at the same time, with body doubles and camera tricks and editing and stuff, wasn't as common as we see now. It was a fairly big deal, but it's just gone too far, and it's actually difficult for me to it's slightly difficult for me to like look back on this as fondly, because I see what it becomes.
I guess I could maybe help out there. Because if we're going to be looking at data lore here, and where it sort of starts here, we could maybe distract ourselves, not by the body double stuff here, but the fact that we get to see a model of Data's ass.
That is true. We do
Yes.
get to see a model of Data's ass.
Yes. And as long as we keep our attention focused on that, we'll be able to get through this, I think.
Yes. So,
Yes.
join us next time for apparently model of Data's ass.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, the best evil twin arrives. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.